Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webcast today. We're looking at data exchange between Autodesk Civil 3D and Revit with our presenter, Jeff Morris. Jeff, I'll pass things over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank everyone for attending today. And so we're going to be looking at exchanging data between Revit and Civil 3D and back again. The software that we'll be using is the 2019.1 or .2 versions of Revit and Civil 3D. This is not available in the initial 2019.0 release, but in the subsequent releases, .1 and .2. There is one component that is not yet available for 2020. So that's why I'm working with the 2019.1 or .2 versions. My name is Jeff Morris. I'm a learning content developer for ASCENT. So we're going to start off by looking at BIM 360 Docs. That is the cloud platform where you can manage files and exchange information, exchange documents. And it is there where the shared surface is going to reside from Civil 3D. So we're going to start by looking a little bit at BIM 360 Docs, how the projects are set up, how we establish folders and access rights, and we invite members. We're not going to be covering everything of that in the demonstration. It does work up in the cloud, so it's always a little bit sketchy working in the cloud with WebEx. But I will show you how BIM 360 Docs works. And then we're going to be moving into Autodesk Revit, and as I mentioned earlier, it's 2019.1. And so from the architect, they're going to be working with the initial design of the building itself. They're going to be establishing a project base point. They're going to be establishing a site, creating view templates, and then exporting these views, both 2D and 3D views, to a drawing format, which then the site designer can incorporate in their design. A lot of these topics are covered in our Fundamentals Architecture book, Revit's Architecture Fundamentals book. And if anyone's taken that, they'll recognize the building that we're working on. It is the Modern Hotel. And then we move over to Civil 3D, and this might be the civil engineer. It might be whoever is working on the site design. And what we'll be doing there is we're going to take one of those 2D plans that we received from Revit, potentially via the cloud, and we're going to XREF that in. We're going to do a trick where we can rename the block or the XREF, and then once we have that, we can easily swap out the 2D drawing with the 3D model and back and forth. And then we're going to initiate the shared coordinates, and that is the additional program that's available in your Autodesk account website, and that is the one that is not yet available for 2020, and therefore I'm working with 2019. And then the site designer is going to establish the surface. They're going to design the site, and then they can publish that surface up into the cloud, into BIM 360. And then we're going to export the Civil 3D drawing to AutoCAD with the exploded AEC objects. And basically what an AEC object is that those are objects that are specific to Civil 3D that native AutoCAD can't understand. And thus, if we bring that drawing into Revit, Revit won't be able to understand these AEC objects. So that's why we have to explode them, dummy them down to regular AutoCAD objects. And I'll show you a few tricks that we can do to work with that as well. And a lot of the stuff that we'll be working on, or some of this stuff, for example, the site design and the surface, those are topics that are covered in our Civil 3D Fundamentals course. And then back to the architect, they will import the shared coordinates. And I'll be discussing what shared coordinates are within Revit. They're going to create a new site for the coordinates that came in. And then a few little tips and tricks like setting the site view to true north so that the site is oriented to true north rather than project north. And they can link the topology from the BIM 360 cloud. And then finally, they'll be linking that site drawing that we prepared earlier with the exploded objects. Okay, so let's get started with that. I'm going to jump over to the okay, my first little problem here. Okay, I guess I closed out of my Explorer earlier. So this is the BIM 360 cloud. It all works in a web browser. Let me maximize this. And I already logged in, so you see up in the corner there is my little picture because I've logged in earlier. You log in with your Autodesk account credentials and your password. And a lot of this stuff needs to be set up with the account manager for BIM 360. So you have to be invited into one of these projects. We have a few different projects here that I'm part of. So I created one here, C3D to Revit. And it jumps over to this particular project. And what your project administrator needs to do is they need to set up these various, for lack of a better word, folders. I have some folders for plans and some folders for project files. And within the plans, we have architectural drawings, hotel 2D drawings, and school 2D drawings that have been exported from Revit. And you notice we have different versions here. These are all version 1. And I have the civil drawings that can go back from Revit, from Civil 3D into Revit. And again, it's all the same version. This civil surfaces, so under my project files, I have civil surfaces. And this is where the surfaces reside. So when I open this up when I reference the surface from Revit, it's going to be going to this particular drawing up in the cloud, and it's going to extract the surfaces from that. And this ASCENT development XML file, that is the shared coordinates that is going to go into Revit to coordinate the coordinates from Civil 3D so they coincide. And then we have Revit models as well. And here we have a few different versions going on. And so there's a lot that we can do with BIM 360. A lot of document control, a lot of model control. And this ability to exchange or share surfaces between Civil 3D and Revit does require BIM 360. Now we're going to jump over into Revit. There we go. And as I mentioned, this is Revit 2019.2. For the Revit users who experienced the Revit 2019.1 upgrade, it was quite a shock because all of a sudden we have this brand new interface. It was a major upgrade from 2019.0 to 2019.1. and it took us all by surprise. Another part of this 2019.1 or .2, we see our recent files here, but here we also have the BIM 360 cloud. So I could actually open up models directly from the cloud and bring them down. And you'll notice that one of these previews for my recent files has a little cloud in it because that is the one that is residing up in the cloud. So I'm just going to go here to Modern Hotel Start. It is local. I could have easily worked with the cloud model as well, but I don't want to tempt Murphy too much in terms of Murphy's Law, and I'll go with the safe method. Okay, so this is the modern hotel that we designed in the fundamentals course. So if anyone's taken the fundamentals course, this is the project that the nice hotel that we designed. And this is the site view. So normally for a project to start off, you need to establish a project base point so that all the disciplines involved, the architects, structure, MEP, electrical, etc., and even civil, will have a base point that they're going to all use in common. And usually it's some kind of grid intersection point. And to view this base point, normally it's hidden. So I'm going to reveal my hidden objects. And we haven't yet moved it. Here I have my survey base point and my project base point. I'm just going to take my project base point and unhide it so that we see it in the site plan. And now I can move it to the agreed upon point. We need to unclip it, move it into place. Okay, I got the endpoint, and then I'm going to clip it again. Okay. Another thing that I like to do within Revit is to, when I start coordinating with Civil 3D, we start working with sites. And so I like to give this an initial site so that I can always get back to it. So I go to my Sites tab, and I'm going to duplicate my internal site. And I'm just going to call it Project. I'm going to make it current. And the reason I call it Project is, again, this is Revit particulars. Within our site plan, we can have our orientation set to Project North or True North. Currently, they're the same. So if I click at the True North, nothing really happens. But so there's True North, which is your global positioning for the North, or there's the Project North, which is usually orthogonal to the general outline of your building. So I just duplicated my view, and I do have a few set up views already for this. One is export to Civil 3D, and in that I've already established a lot of visibility graphics. I could go a little bit deeper. I could turn off more ceilings and individual objects because I don't really want them to be exported into Civil 3D. Civil 3D, we're only really concerned about the shell of the building. So through the visibility graphics, I can turn off all the information that I don't want to export. And once I have that done, another thing about the visibility graphics within Revit is you can, there's usually an interior filter already set. So I can uncheck my interior filter. And just what the how to create the filters is that we can establish the functions for a variety of these categories, whose function equals interior. I could also say create another interior, perhaps an exterior function. So I could say whose function does not equal interior. And then I can just go through my model categories and uncheck the objects that I don't want to see. And once I have this set up, then I can go to my view and save this as a view template, which I've already done. Oh, it's over on my other file. So I do have this export to Civil 3D 2D and export to Civil 3D 3D. So I can apply this to this particular view, again, to weed out the information that I don't want to come over into my Civil 3D drawing. Okay. Now when that's done, I can now export my drawings. Now export my files to my CAD format drawings. And another little tip that I would recommend is that you would set up a view set for the files that you want to export. And the ones I'm going to be exporting are my 3D model and my 2D site plan. Very important consideration here is that in order to get this to work properly, especially after we bring the shared coordinates back in, is that we go to our export setup, and under units and coordinates, we tell it that we're working with shared coordinates. We can also double check to make sure that our units are exported as inches. I could export them as feet as well, but it's best to leave them as inches. And then I'm going to do my transformation on the civil side to feet. So I'm just going to, I'm going to go to next. So unfortunately here, as I said, not everything is quite set up the way it should be. Right here, it would be really great if I could export this up into the cloud, but that's not yet available. So basically, I would have to save it locally and then upload it into the cloud. I'm just going to close out of cancel out of this because I've already have this set up. And now we're going to go over to the Civil 3D side. There we go. And again, for those who've taken our Civil 3D Fundamentals course, you might recognize this set. This is the infamous Jeffries Ranch Road and ASCENT Place. And our Fundamentals course talks about how to design this. And I've changed the base plan around a little bit so that we actually do have the footprint of the hotel and the pool already incorporated into the site plan. So what I want to do now is I want to XREF in that school, no, not the school, the hotel. I'm going to XREF in the modern hotel 2D, hotel 2D. And you notice that it does read the block unit as inches as we determined. So it automatically applies a scale factor to convert it to feet. I XREF it in as a overlay and a relative path. And, well, I'm not going to do the rotation here. Let's see. Maybe I'll try the rotation. Now, there is a nice little tool in AutoCAD called Align, not to be confused with the Revit Align command. And what that allows us to do is to place 2 points I want that point to come over here, and I want this point to go over here. It's prompting for a 3rd point, and that would where we could align it in 3D, but we're only interested in 2D. So I hit Enter, and I don't want to scale the object. And then it just brings those 2 objects together. And what I like to do, for those of you that have used the old building site and export to Civil 3D in 2019.0 and 2018, that no longer exists. They took that out of 2019.1. And therefore, I'm bringing in these 3D drawings instead. So this is the best workflow that I've come up with. I'm going to rename a block. And the block that I want to rename is Hotel 2D. And I'm simply going to rename it to Hotel. And the reason I do that is, also notice that I do have some multi-view blocks here within Civil 3D, so that in plan view they look like regular 2D drawings. But if I go to a model view, we see that those 2D drawings have jumped into 3D representations. Kind of look like small little monopoly houses. Go back to I need to double check that XREF. Need to check the elevation. Yeah. So let's move it up to 191. No, 196. Okay. Because now if I go back to my custom view again, so if I go to my XREF manager, all I need to do is to swap my 2D out to 3D. So simply 2D to 3D, hit Enter. So it kind of behaves as a multi-view block. There it is. It's really bogging down. But that's why I like to rename my simply swapping out 2D and 3D XREFs. I'm going to close out of this. It's bogging down a bit too much. So now I went ahead and I did some grading. I graded around my building footprint. And now I need to export this as a file because, as you know, Revit doesn't like to work with any coordinates greater than, I believe, 2 miles from its origin. So therefore, we need to export these shared coordinates. So Civil 3D works with huge coordinates, as you can see down here with our coordinates. So we have this utility under the subscription extension, shared coordinates. It's a nifty little utility. So it's looking for the origin point. Another little tip here is I can use my dot filters. Shift right click will bring up this menu, and I can tell it that I'm looking for the X and Y of this particular spot. And now it needs to know the Z or Z, 197. Very slow. So that's my base point. And now it wants to know where the quasi-north is, and quasi-north can be considered the project north in Revit. So again, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to use the dot filter again so I'm using the XY of this particular point. And now I can use the @ symbol, which means use the same point elevation that we had last time. And it thinks that this model is in meters, but it is in feet. So this is the XML file that's going to be written. Now it's asking me where I want to save my XML file. And you see it goes out to my BIM 360 folder under Civil Surfaces, and this is the one that we looked at already. I'm just going to cancel out of this. Again, I don't want to stress the cloud too much. And then the last thing is I want to export this, I want to publish my surface. So I have two surfaces here. This is my commercial tin surface, and this is my final ground. So I'm going to, again, this is only available in 2019.1 or .2, where I can collaborate and I can publish my surfaces. So as I said, I want to publish the commercial site, commercial surface, and my FG surface. And I can browse out back to BIM 360 and tell it where I want to export these to. So this is the folder structure that we were looking at in BIM 360. It just got duplicated onto my local drive, and it swaps them back and forth. So once again, I'm going to just cancel out of this. And then I want to export this as export civil 3D drawings. And I'm going to bind and explode my external references. Unfortunately, I can't, again, bring this up into the cloud, so it has to be done locally and then moved up into the cloud. So I've already done this. Again, I'm just going to cancel out of this. But I did want to show you what we did export. So this is the exported version, and what we have are the contours are now individual lines. The alignments are all individual objects, and my XREFs are actually blocks now. One tip that I normally do, just to be on the safe side, if I get to the surface, just to be on the safe side, we can extract from surface objects. So I can extract all my contours from the surface so that they become regular polylines. And then I export my my drawing. Okay, so now let's go back to to Revit. Free up some resources here. Okay, so I'm just going to close out of this. And let's go to so I jumped ahead a little bit. So this is another drawing, but another file. And it's already set to project True North. I'm going to set it back to Project North. And I'm going to go to my add-ins. And in my add-ins, I have import shared coordinates from XML file. It's looking for the origin point, just like we gave it in Civil 3D. So this is the origin point. This is my quasi-north. And it's looking for the file. I could grab this from BIM 360, but I've already downloaded it. Now it wants to know if I want to because I already brought this in. I'm going to create a new site called ASCENT Hotel, which is the same name as the XML file that I just brought in. And if I now come over to my sites again, we see that we have ASCENT Hotel. And I would make that current. And now when I set this to True North, you see now that it's oriented the same fashion that it was in my Civil 3D. Before I bring the site in, I just wanted to show you, for example, the building elevations. You see that we don't have any ground here. It just is cutting through the, or it's just showing me the building elevation without any ground. So now I'm going to link the topology. So I go to my Insert tab, and here we have Link Topology. It browses out to BIM 360, to the project files. This is the folder structure that we looked at already. I could navigate around to the proper folder, but it's already set up here. Now it's going to give me this message. Again, it's they do not share the same coordinates. The link coordinates will be aligned with the project shared coordinates. This is why we had to bring in that XML file. I'm not quite sure why this message comes up, because that's why we did bring in the XML file. But that's basically what it means. And here we see this, the Civil 3D surface that came in with, and it's just the surface. It's not all the other information. That's why I brought in the DWG as well. But if I now go over to my elevation, now we see our topology, and we see the ground as well. If I go to a section, we'll see the section has this now nice ground hatch as well, because it has this surface to work with. And if I go to my 3D view, and it, remember I gave it the 197 elevation, so the surface comes in nicely. Okay. And then the last thing is we would link the go to our start menu. So we would finally link in the drawing. So I already did this. When I go to link in a drawing, I'll just show you a few tips that I needed to do. Was this that we wanted to link in. Because it's a site plan, I'm going to uncheck this correct lines that are slightly off axis. I don't trust this auto detect units, so I'm actually going to tell it that it is in feet. And my position, it should be by shared coordinates, but again, it doesn't work the way it should work. So therefore, I go with origin to origin. And I want to link it to my current view only. Normally, you would set your colors to black and white, but I just left them as preserve so that you can actually see the the drawing underneath that. And the other thing that I did is I hid my my surface in my view, because if I didn't, then you won't see the drawing underneath the surface. So therefore, for this particular view, I don't really need to see the surface contours, so I can hide it in my view because I have the contours coming through my DWG, but the surface shows up in all the other views. Okay, I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. So to recap, what we did is we first went into BIM 360, which is a subscription. You need to subscribe to that. It's not open to everyone. And it's gaining more and more traction, this BIM 360. We're putting a lot of effort into this. So we set up our project in BIM 360 for the civil drawings and the Revit models and the exported Revit drawings and the exported civil drawing. And it is there where we will also store the surface. And then we went to Revit, we created the model, we established the base plan, we prepared the views, the 3D view, export to Civil 3D, and the site plan for the 2D view. And then we exported these. They could not be exported directly up into the cloud, so we exported them onto our local machine, and then we uploaded them through BIM 360 into the cloud. And once they were up in the cloud, then the site designer could take that. They would download them, and they would XREF the files into Civil 3D. They would initiate the shared coordinates by giving it the base point and the quasi-north. And I used just to be on the safe side, I used the .xy filter so that I could tell it what the Z elevation for that coordinate would be. And then we exported the drawings. Again, as a precaution, I actually extracted the contours, and I made sure that the XREFs were bound into the drawing as a block. And then I also shared my surface. And then going back to Revit, we referenced in the surface. First, we brought in the shared coordinates. I forgot this. And that established a new site. And then we set our site plan to true north. We referenced in the surface, and we linked the drawing, the Civil 3D drawing. There's more collaboration that we can do amongst these different programs. We could bring both models into InfraWorks for visualization, presentations, and conceptual work. We could bring it into Navisworks. Navisworks is a great visualization tool. It can do some animation, clash detection amongst different projects, different models, and it's also a wonderful tool for construction management. We could bring both models into 3D Studio for high quality visualization and very good animation. And we can bring it into BIM 360 for document management, project management, clash detection, and construction management. These might be topics for further webcasts. The latest releases, as Corinne said, in a couple of weeks we'll be updating this for the latest releases for 2020. These are the 2019 books that are currently available, and I used snippets from the Civil 3D Fundamentals and the Revit. Revit isn't on here. But in 2 weeks you'll see the our release dates for all our ASCENT courseware. Oops, what happened here?
Excellent. Oh, thanks, Jeff. Did you want me to talk to this slide?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Thank you.
So we just wanted to let you know, Jeff was showing you that slide, and I should have really updated it for 2020 products, but that's okay. Those are, some of them are out now. We've got lots of different types of training materials, so depending on how you like to learn, we've got printed books, we have e-books, and we have e-learning. So we have all that available. If you're an instructor and you have got to teach the material to others, we also have instructor guides, which are really great. So, and then for larger sites, if you've got locations where you know, especially for your university or college or a corporation where you're needing lots of different copies of the books rather than buying them individually, we also sell what's called digital site licenses, and there you get access to the files so that you can print the training materials yourself. So all of these different materials are available for you on our website. We just wanted to give you a kind of a quick snapshot of that. We also sell them through Amazon as well, which is great. If you're in the U.S. especially, I believe, and you're a Prime member, then you get free shipping on most of our books too, which is always a bonus. And if you want to just go quickly there to the last slide, there we are. We're all over the place. So our website is ASCENT.com on the upper left. So if you go on there, that's where you'll find all of the different courseware, the training materials that Jeff was referencing. You can purchase them there. You can have a look through at sample chapters and table of contents for all of our books as well. So you can really see what's inside of it before you purchase it. You can also go directly to our ASCENT eStore if you're familiar with that. That's the next website. Either way, if you're on our website, you will be directed to the eStore for your e-commerce portion of it. And if you need to contact us, of course, there's lots of information there. You've got our phone number, our email address, and if you've got any questions or comments, even if you think of something about this webcast afterwards or another topic you'd like to hear, please do email us at feedback@ascented.com.